Hey, thanks for making it to Veterans Preference. We are glad you made it. We have a special guest here, Chris, replacing Chris. So Chris, who's usually on, is not on. And we have a replacement Chris. Thank God we have a replacement Chris. So Chris Starling, it is great to see you, my friend. We have a great, I guess, episode here that we're going to do with some really good kind of hindsight vision, as you put it earlier. On kind of where we were, and I'll let Randy dive into what we're going to talk about. But before we do, Chris, please introduce yourself to the viewers. Let them know who you are, kind of your background, and maybe a passion or two of yours.
Yeah. So Chris Starling. I was born in Germany. I grew up in a military family. I did primary school in the Scottish Highlands, high school in Rhode Island, college in Virginia, into the Marine Corps, and 26 years on active duty, all 4 divisions, infantry. When I got out, I went to the nonprofit space, and right now I run Empower Skill Bridge, where I take people from defending the nation to defending the network. So I create cyber warriors, but I do it while you're still on active duty before you get out. That way you have a job waiting for you at your EAS. So that's what I'm doing now.
That's awesome, Chris. Well, we appreciate you being a stand-in for the other Chris. The other Chris is off gallivanting on vacation, and so love to have you here again. You've been on previous episodes, and you mentioned Empower, Skill Bridge, those things. So encourage all the viewers to take a look at our previous videos with Chris Starling and take a look at some of that material because it's awesome stuff. Okay. Today's episode is going to be about the person I wish I knew while I was on active duty. So looking back in your career, think about the person or the skill set in that person that you wish you knew before you got to transition or retirement. And the reason why we're doing this, guys, is not because it's going to benefit every viewer to the max that's already been through retirement, been through transitioning out of the military, but a lot of our brothers and sisters are still in. A lot of our viewers are still in. So this is a way to kind of help them understand in hindsight from our perspective with gray hair and beards now and everything else getting out of the military, the person that we wish we knew. So what I'm going to do is just kind of toss it over to Jason here in a quick minute and let him go with his thoughts, and then down to Chris, and I'll kind of finish it off. But that's going to be the topic of today's episode, and we'll kick it over to Jason for your initial thoughts.
That's great. Yeah, and I think this is a great topic because the best way to learn is from somebody else's mistake, right? Sure, you can learn from your own mistakes, right? But learning from other people's kind of helps leapfrog you a little further in the system. So with that, before I jump in with who I wish I knew or somebody that came to me to drop knowledge on me and where I was, hit that thumbs up for us, subscribe, share with a friend, all that good stuff. I really appreciate it. We all do. It helps to get the word out. What we're trying to do here is eliminate the I wish I would have knowns. So I'm going to preface this with 70% of veterans, okay, of the 18, 17 million veterans, whatever the number is, 70% are not service connected for VA disability compensation. And for those of you, the 30%, you know that is a very high number because of just the vast array of different conditions that you could be rated for. I'm not saying everybody's going to be a 30, a 50, a 70, 100%. I'm saying there's probably a lot of zeros and 10% and 20% people out there that never did it. So I say that because that's who we need to get this information in front of. For me, what I wish I would have known getting out of the military is the vast, and I know this is just so umbrella and wide, but I'll segment one out of it. I wish that they did, and now I got out this, I think this part's important, and I'd love to see comments on what it looks like today. And Chris probably has a little bit of that flavor right now because of where he's at with SkillBridge. When I got out of the Marine Corps in '97, there wasn't much. I don't even really recall like TAP or anything like that. I recall going to a couple things and getting some check boxes, and they let me go get a PowerPoint and Excel and Word class, and I went to a job fair that was basically it, an on-base job fair, and good luck, have a great one. Not really conducive to setting somebody up for success walking out the gate. And I truly wish that there was somebody who I could just go sit with, even if I didn't want to, because you don't really want to. That's the weird thing. In your mind, you're like, I'm good, I'm getting out. But be almost forced to sit down one-on-one with somebody for a couple hours and just talk it through. Here's all of the different types of benefits that are available for you, what they look like, how you access them. It is really, I think, an important piece. For me specifically, VA disability compensation would have been a fantastic one up front, because it opens up so many other doors and awareness that, and I know that that's like the big one, right? The disability compensation thing. And you guys, if you say it too, that's cool. But for me, having that little bit of extra money, because I'm losing BAH as I get out, I'm taking a step down in my job because nobody knows what the hell I did as a mortarman. So off I go. And that would have been a tremendous help, having a little bit of disability compensation and some awareness of different benefits that opened up because of that, i.e. VRE, Veterans Readiness and Employment. So those are a couple of the big things and kind of the overview for me personally. And like you said, Randy, we'll do the round robin, and then we'll dive in a little bit deeper on some of those if we have some time. So with that, I'll kick it over to Chris. With the person that you wish that you had a little bit of time with regarding your transition.
Yeah, I think, and to make this useful for people who are in the transition or recently transitioned, right? I look at three people, right? I would want a mentor in each category. Number one is educational. There are amazing educational benefits out there that are very widespread, right? I run the SkillBridge program. I call it the ounce of prevention. I'm going to get you trained up before you get out. What normally happens, you get out, you got your sea bag, your DDU 14, you're at a bus stop somewhere waiting to catch a plane back to Paducah, Kentucky, or wherever you came from. Then you go to your parents' basement, you play video games, you drink your dad's beer. If you have a parent that has a basement. So I want an educational mentor. Where can I go and get the education and really the skills that I need? When I say skills, I'm talking competency-based credentials that will make me a welder, a political scientist, a cybersecurity person, whatever it is that I want to do, right? And it's not about, a lot of people just waver and are indecisive about what you're going to do. Like the hardest question I had to answer as a retired Marine. I mean, I got a retirement check coming, so it was different, but what do I want to do? Really hard to answer. Second, so educational. Second, I want a financial mentor. I want a financial coach. There are all kinds of great tax breaks. There are advantages of living in different states. There are a lot of benefits to being a veteran, a lot of discounts, a lot of things that can make your life a little bit easier. So managing money, investing money properly, being able to use a VA loan, for example, to get a home, that financial person. And lastly, really important is the camaraderie part, right? I want somebody who, and this goes to mental health. This goes to our spiritual well-being, our fellowship. It goes to our culture. I can't talk about shooting a small rocket with anybody else besides those people who know what that feels like. I can't talk about, leaving the perimeter, test firing my weapons and leaving a perimeter to go out on patrol, unless I'm talking to people who knows what that feels like. So here in San Francisco, there are groups that go on hikes. They do these really cool things. And so recently I've gotten into those, but here I am like 9 years after, and I'm finding out about things. So I would like an educational, financial, and a camaraderie person, 3 different people that really know what they're talking about in that arena, giving me some advice.
I think those are awesome examples. I liked your vignette about an ounce of prevention. And so the person that I wish I knew is kind of in that same vein. And even though it seems like you're fast forwarding in your career, I'll explain a little bit more. So the person that I wish I knew when I was a young, pilot in the Navy and then subsequent in the Guard is a VSO, a veteran service officer. And you might think, well, Randy, those people help you after you get out of the military. They're there to help you file your VA claim. Why would you want to know a VSO when you've only been in for a year or 2 years or 3 years? And to Chris Starling's point, an ounce of prevention, right? A VSO isn't limited to only talking to veterans, only talking to people that have transitioned out. It's perfectly fine to talk to a VSO every year or two. Pick up the phone, have a call with them for 15, 20, 30 minutes. Talk a little bit about what's happened in your career, what's happened in your training, maybe some bumps and bruises you got along the way. They're going to be able to give you advice, things like, retain paper copies of your medical records because these digital copies tend to get lost. Document things and, keep them available for future use. Remember, documentation on things like your assessment before you take a physical fitness test can be used for supporting a claim later. VSOs are a wealth of information. So I didn't really learn about them until I had left the military, and I utilized one to assist with my claim. But being proactive and knowing that everybody leaves the military, there's not a single person that goes into the military that doesn't leave in some form or fashion. So you need to be prepared for that date. And one of the people that can help you with that is a VSO. Remember, these are folks that aren't necessarily paid by you. There's plenty of VSOs that are state employees, that are county employees. Some of them work for the VFW or the American Legion. So there's veteran service organizations that you can reach out to. But really, they're designed and they're trained to help you gather information and support your claim. And that dovetails with what Jason just said. Having that, sort of claim filed, having that little bit of support as you make a really big transition in your life is important. They're going to help you with everything downstream after that. It's going to be years in the future if an appeal is necessary or whatever it may be. But for the younger folks watching this video, I would suggest picking up the phone or stopping by a VSO office every, year or two. Take a half hour out of your day, take some notes, and just tell them a little bit about what's happened with your career, you personally, and just let them know you're looking to the future and you want to make that day where you move into the Department of Veterans Affairs from the Department of Defense as smooth as possible. I wish I knew that person, and so that's mine. Jason, I'm going to throw it back to you to kind of continue the dialogue.
Yeah, absolutely. So, as we're looking at this, the big piece here is that those people exist, right? We just didn't know to seek them out. They're not going to come seek you out 90% of the time, right? Now, I, in my prior life, would go speak at TAPS classes and be that person reaching out, but not every organization has the bandwidth to be proactive in that way. So therefore, we, as the transitioning service member or veteran or reservist, need to be proactive in that sense. So these people do exist. These people that we're talking about that we wish that we knew, they do exist in one shape, or fashion or what have you. So we need to reach out and try to find them. I love that you said the veteran service officer. Oftentimes, a veteran service officer, although they may not provide everything like Chris was saying, they're not the subject matter expert on it all, but they might be the hub in that network, in that community, county, geographic region, what have you, so they'll know who to point you to, right? Oh, you want to do something in this realm for employment? Well, then we need to get you over to NPower. Here's the subject matter experts over at NPower regarding that technology aspect that you want to segue into, or whatever the case may be. So with that, I think that the important lesson here is that don't sit on your hands. Be proactive and really force those relationships. Here's the thing. We are stagnant if we're not pushing ourselves a little bit, right? If you're not uncomfortable, a little bit nervous, a little bit like, man, I really don't want to reach out to this person or go talk to this person that I've never talked to before. It's what they're there for typically. And you're not going to grow if you don't put yourself out there. I'd love to hear, some examples. I'm just double tapping on Randy's VSO aspect. But there's so many resources nowadays versus 10 years ago, 15, 20 years ago. YouTube is a huge one. I mean, you can have conversations, other people can chime in, you can have comments in there. There's a ton of different forums and stuff on the internet. I'm a fan of in-person stuff, right? But sometimes that's how you can find it, right? Is from the internet into your local space, then bam, you're there. So
Right.
I'm going to kick it back to you, Randy. Give us a couple examples. We'll roll down to Chris for some examples on how people can really make this happen for themselves.
Yeah, I mean, the first thing that came to mind, Jason, is recruiters. Now, you have to be a little bit careful with recruiters. There are good recruiters and there are not so good recruiters. I like to think, because I'm an optimist, that the majority of them are well-intentioned and do a pretty good job. But a recruiter is going to offer you a couple things. One of them is to help the transitioning service member dress up their resume, make sure they're highlighting certain experiences, education that they may have received, help them identify companies that they may want to target in their search, or, even more broader perspective, industries that they might want to be in. But the thing that a recruiter is going to be able to do for you, if you pick a good one and you need to do your research ahead of time, is their network. Recruiters are very, very well networked individuals. So, the whole theme of this is the person that I wish I knew before I got out. A good recruiter is somebody to know well in advance. And so not a month ahead of time, not 2 weeks ahead of time. Honestly, I would start engaging with these folks 9 months to a year before you know that you're going to exit the military. That way you can start with the basics, getting LinkedIn up to date, getting your resume up to date, making sure that any supporting documentation from training that you've had along the way is necessary and collected. Letters of recommendation, those always help. They almost never hurt. So going to, former supervisors, commanding officers, whatever it may be that you did a great job for, and they're willing to say a few words, get it down on paper, gathering all that stuff. And then you can go to the recruiter, discuss, I want to live in New England, I want to work in manufacturing, and I want, whatever it may be. And you can, start having those people help you and narrow in. So, that's kind of the person that, I would also throw out there that's worth knowing before you get out. And then remember, the power in the recruiter isn't them placing your resume, in front of you and saying, good luck. It's their network. Leverage their network. So I'm going to throw it over to Chris Starling, let you take a hack at this question and hear what you have to say.
Great discussion. Okay. Number one, I'm going to advertise somebody here. His name is Kevin Bottino, and he has a company called Collab Resume. And you can look him up, Kevin Bottino, COLLAB Resume. And that's what I use for my NPower students. And I constantly get back, these are the best resumes we've ever seen. He takes one-on-one time to work on this with people. That's a guy I wish I had known ahead of time, because how are you going to take 26 years of military service and then civilianize it? It's a really hard thing to do. The other thing I'll say is I was blessed with two really good VSOs. When I got out, leaving the Pentagon, a guy came up to me and goes, hey, don't just leave it to chance. Go see this guy at Fort Belvoir. He really, really knows what he's doing. And he gave me the name and the number. And so I called the guy and I got an appointment. You can leave it up to chance where you go. But if you can get recommendations, just like if you bring a plumber or an electrician into your house, you're probably going to check Angie's or whatever. They don't really have that. And not all VSOs are equal necessarily, but I had a fantastic guy when I first got out at Fort Belvoir. And then I was in San Francisco. And again, I didn't listen to this podcast because it didn't exist, 8-9 years ago. I didn't have this. Only years later, when the PACT Act came out, is when I went back to the VA, right? I had a disability rating, but this guy looked, he goes, oh my God, the PACT Act thing covers all these other things that have happened, right? And it was actually Jason who got me into, hey, if you haven't done your PACT Act, you go in there. He gave me the little nudge, right? So I did it, and it was really a great move. So Jason, you're the guy I wish I knew. Anyway, when I got to San Francisco VA, an amazing VSO, looked over my things, highlighted everything that was PACT Act related, sent it off, said, here's your appointments. They're in Fremont, California. Don't be late. Don't miss them. Get it done. And he was amazingly squared away. And it made a huge difference for me, right? That I didn't even know that I rated at all. So Pick the VSO and then a collab resume. Having a good, strong resume, and you're totally right. Getting early with recruiters or where you might want to work. See where your buddies went and who's got a good quality of life and enjoying it.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that you threw that in there with the resume piece. What a great resource for folks. And the swimming upstream piece is vital. Back to you, Randy. That it doesn't hurt. Nobody's going to say no. I'm not allowed to talk to you, right? So it. The one thing that we can all agree on is that, and it's in a way it's kind of bred into us to be more worried about others than yourself, right? Be selfless. I mean, that's one of the traits, right? Selflessness. So you go through this whole process in the military, and you're doing it typically with making sure that the group is good, whatever group you're in, right? Whatever size that is, whether it's a squad, a platoon, whatever sort of a level you fall in, making sure that they're good, your team's good, whatever's good, you move forward, you get out, and you are a good Marine, soldier, airman, whatever, sailor, what are the space, guardian, right? Coastie, trying to cover everybody. So you make it through all that. And then when you finally get ready to start the claims process, you realize you didn't document anything. And I think, to Randy's point, having those conversations is vital for folks while they're still in, because they will get the advice that they need to ensure that they document what needs to be documented during their time in service. And quite frankly, it does not matter if you document it on year 2 or year 22 of service. It doesn't matter when, as long as it's in that window of opportunity. Now, I love that the aspect of working with recruiters, and I think that for a lot of folks, there's going to be organizations out there that operate kind of like a headhunter. I like to use Work for Warriors as an example. Work for Warriors is a great organization that's located in, I don't even know anymore, probably about 12 different states. And what they do is they act as the conduit between the company and the military individual or spouse. So it's good to even float stuff past them. Get engaged in the state in which you want to go. They have, again, it's their connections. It's not them specifically. It's who they're connected to. Dialing in your LinkedIn. And oh, by the way, LinkedIn has a free upgraded version for military veterans. So make sure you utilize that in your job search. I'm going to throw out one more question to you guys. And I'm trying to think about how to pose it, and I'm going to screw it up, and I'm just going to pose it just as a young Marine would, and just kind of throw it out there. Just kind of, here it is. What do you think is the biggest internal hangup for somebody filing a VA disability claim? So again, 70% are not, have never.
Yeah.
What do you think is the biggest hang up internally, Randy?
I think it's stigma. I think that, we as a veteran community and we as service members, we're trained to serve others first. That is our, we're diverse, where there's a bunch of different people, a bunch of different mindsets in the military, but one commonality is we serve, right? We tend not to think about ourselves. And so, there's almost a stigma that's associated with going to the VA and saying, hey, here's what happened. Here are the things that I need assistance with. And I want you to take a look at these bumps, bruises, illnesses, injuries, whatever, while I was on active duty, and provide me with some assistance. So I think it's just a stigma. We don't want to be recognized or seen as the people that are asking for help. But in reality, that help and that resource and those benefits are there by law. And, if we don't take advantage of them as a community, to Jason's point, there's a big 70% gap there. Resources provided by the government, be it state or federal, even local in some cases, tend to evaporate. So that's kind of my initial thought on that. The second thing I'll say is there's ways to get past some of this mental block, maybe stigma, mental block, however you want to put it. The overall theme of today's episode is the person that I wish I knew. And, before getting out, one of the things that you can do is to reach out to one of your veteran service organizations, and they will help you kind of get through some of these mental hurdles, some of this, stigma that you think you might face, and help find the benefits that you've earned. Now, there's a lot out there. There's the DAV, there's the American Legion, there's the VFW. I personally, have just kind of always gravitated to the VFW. Haven't done a ton with them, but the little bit I have interacted with them it's been awesome. Not all veteran service organizations are created the same. They all have slightly different missions. This isn't a plug for one specifically. I'm just relaying a personal experience, which is these folks tend to do a good mission. Matter of fact, I've got their website up. I will read you what their mission is, and you can kind of see how this helps you get over some of that stigma that helps folks from getting their benefits. So it says, to foster camaraderie among United States veterans of overseas conflicts, to serve our veterans, the military, and our communities, and to advocate on behalf of all veterans. So Jason's point is 70% not using. Why isn't this happening? Randy's answer, possibly some stigma. So when you tie all that together with the mission of the VFW, I think they're aligned nicely with getting rid of some of those blockers that are in the way. Chris Starling, you're next up to bat here with Jason's question, so I'll toss it over to you. That's my
in 1989, I was playing in a rugby game, and I remember I was in some loose play, got smashed in the back, and I had a ruptured disc and a bulging disc, and I hid those. I didn't want to go to medical. I hid those for about 6 years, and then one time I was out running with my kids in a buggy, and I was going down a hill, and the pain got too much, and I had to go in. And finally, I got to Bethesda. I had an operation called laminectomy discectomy, and the doctor was like, "Hey, Joe Montana had this, Troy Aikman had this." I'm dating myself, dating quarterbacks back from the 90s time frame. But yeah, I got way better really fast. And the lesson there is, like, go do it early. Like, why are you dealing with the pain of all these things or not having the benefits you deserve? Get it done early. These resources are out there, and what you said, Randy, is exactly right. The government funds those things, and if they're not used, that's going to disappear from the state and then from the federal. And in cases where you've suffered an injury in the line of duty or those things, and they should be documented, and you should be able to go pretty quickly and get it set up. In my case, that injury, again, it was pick up rugby game with Navy guys. Should have never done that, but that was still in the line of duty, right? And I somehow didn't think it was, because it was, sports or whatever. And again, I was a young lieutenant. I didn't understand it all, but get it done early and go to that VSO. That VSO is going to change your life.
Good point, Chris. Here's the thing. When you're active duty, it's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We've all done that funny math when we first joined and go, hey, I'm getting paid 12 cents an hour or whatever it is, right? So it's really true. Anything that happens to you during your time in service is going to be covered. And that's an important aspect. I will say that I think that a lot of the kind of self-segregation out of VA disability compensation is misperceptions and horrible descriptors from the VA standpoint. So the fact you're calling it disability already makes people go, probably not me, because I have all my fingers and toes. Save that for the person that was in the convoy and got hit by the IED. That's the person who needs that. So obviously that person's going to be taken care of, right? But that's not the only people that are taken care of. And so it's way more vast than what the descriptor makes it sound like, because disability really in our minds, we think of, okay, wheelchair, missing limbs, that type of stuff when you hear disability or disabled. The other kind of weird thing is, and I'm sure everybody on this and probably everybody watching could agree, is that during your time in service, especially the beginning, okay, the first 4 years, 6 years, maybe 8, it's very frowned upon to go to the battalion aid station, go to the medic, to go, hey, I got some sand in my shorts, right? I gotta go. No, you're gonna suck it up and you're gonna deal with it because you don't want the repercussions. You don't want to be labeled. You don't want to be called X, Y, or Z. And maybe things are changing a little bit, but not that much, I'm sure. And I get it. I understand the why. You want to have a ready, deployable, fully functioning company or platoon or whatever it is, right? Battalion. But there are circumstances in which you should probably get that like annotated somewhere, right? And so there's this weird thing that we carry on through our time in service of don't go get seen because of all the repercussions. Then you get out, and then what? You're supposed to go get seen and like just totally change your mindset. Because guess what? The military is really good at forming and shaping a mindset. You have to unravel that and tell yourself it's okay to go have this conversation, right? And it sounds easy, but I think there's some subconscious stuff at play. I'm no psychologist, but I'm sure that some of that's at play in addition to they're calling it disability, I don't rate, all of those types of things. The other thing that gets me with the way the VA does things is, and us, I mean, we make the problem worse. The 0 through 100% rating schedule makes it sound like that's the entire rating schedule for disabilities once you get over that hump of understanding that heartburn, GERD is considered a disability, right? Migraine headaches is a disability. Sinusitis is a disability. All of these things fall under disability compensation. Once we get over that realm, then we're thinking, okay, well, I shouldn't rate 100% because 100% is the maximum. Well, if 100% is the maximum, then again, that's the person that got hit by the IED. That's that person. I am not that person. Save it for them because I need them to be taken care of because I care about my brothers and sisters. So then we self-segregate again out of pursuing other higher ratings in some cases or rating at all. And then in addition, we look at our brothers and sisters that have 100% and then go, you're walking, shame on you. You did something wrong to get that. Because we don't understand that there's a whole other rating schedule called special monthly compensation, that's what the person that got hit by the IED's on. They're getting special monthly compensation. They're missing a limb, whatever their circumstances is, or their circumstances are. And their monthly payout is 2-3 times the amount of the 100% schedule, and they're getting probably special monthly or special adaptive housing grants. They can go get a car grant for an adaptive car. There's a whole other world that the severe circumstances have. So what are your thoughts on, and I just want to hear quickly from you guys, based on what I said, what are your thoughts on the VA's ability or inability to be a little more, I guess, welcoming to all veterans and having that kind of a real conversation instead of throwing words out and percentages and all this stuff that make people go, maybe that's not me. Randy.
I think honestly, the percentages piece is one of the biggest blockers that's out there because it's misleading. You think, well, geez, there's a person that's 100%, but I see them walking down the street with their dog. That doesn't seem right. That is not the way the system was designed, and unfortunately, these numbers just don't always tell the true story of what the VA is attempting to accomplish with their rating scale. So there's a problem. There's a downstream problem from that. Many of our states have begun to rely on those numbers as litmus tests to pass along certain state benefits. Now, I'll throw a couple of examples out there. I was born in the state of Oregon, and if you're 100%, disabled from your service, there is a benefit that you can receive from the state for your dependents to go to Oregon universities, whichever one you choose, at a discounted or free rate, actually. But you have to hit 100%. Other states, if you're above 50%, you get benefits with your automobile, for example. I think, guys, don't blow me up in the comments down below, but I think in Colorado, if you're above 50%, you get some benefits with registering your car, and it costs a lot less. But again, to Jason's point, we're tying now we've got a screwed up rating schedule. At least the nomenclature behind it, 0 to 100, I think is not a great idea. But now we're tying state and even county and city benefits, county for property taxes. So I think that's really problematic. I don't think there's a way we can get out of it. I think we as a community just need to accept it and destigmatize it. That's, a point that I made earlier. Chris Starling, we're starting to wind the video down here. I'll kick it over to you for your thoughts on that.
Yeah, no, all these things this is a really great discussion. Another thing that we didn't touch on, and I've talked to some veterans like, well, I don't want to go get a disability rating. I don't want a mental health check because I want to own a firearm. Again, I think that's a poor reason to not get yourself checked, right? What on every front, right? And we all know people that, that have suffered from depression, civilian friends, military friends, everything else. You owe it to yourself to go in and just make sure everything's good to go. And all these other things about, one to own firearms or having this stigma or some label on you is not relevant. There's privacy around that. And, I think that's just something that I've heard that I thought I would share. And, as you get older, you can kind of look back and what's more important, right? Your physical health, your well-being, your being there for your family, for your friends, for your brothers and sisters you serve with. That's the main thing. So I just wanted to add that little piece in there. That's been another thing why people don't go.
Yeah, absolutely, Chris. You're so dead on. There's so much, and regarding the whole mental health, everything aspect of VA claims. In addition to that, there's been in the news and in legislature, there's been some back and forth, and there's been it's just passed in the yearly NDAA, so it only lasts until the new one, so it's not a permanent thing. But when a veteran gets assigned a fiduciary, okay, so in some cases, a veteran who is collecting VA disability, if they're deemed financially unfit, they will get assigned a fiduciary. There's been, and I'm not to say how deep they go or how much due diligence they really have. But what happens is the VA then has the ability to notify the FBI, and then that person's gun rights are taken away. I disagree. It shouldn't work like that. Somebody other than a bureaucrat should have to intervene and figure out if you are truly unfit or not. And so that is the legislation that went into place, was to bar the VA from being able to just randomly, I'm going to call it randomly. I'm sure the VA says they go through a very deep checklist, whatever. Instead of the VA doing that, the VA can only request a judge to be able to look. The veteran then gets their due diligence and their day in court, so to speak, to really make sure that that they're either in harm of themselves or someone else or what have you. So, good point though, and I'm glad that you mentioned it, because at the end of the day, really, it's that you're right. There's so many of us know somebody or have seen somebody who is a very depressed individual having problems, and that needs to be fixed. There's zero quality of life with depression. Depression is a real thing, and it really, really sucks. And it just, there is a toll that is paid for not just the person who is severe depressed, who has severe depression, but also their entire sphere of influence or their community, right? Their family. So good point. I really appreciate it, Chris. With that, we'll go ahead and wrap it up here. We really appreciate you guys for watching. Please comment about Chris in the comments, just because I want you guys to talk about Chris. Chris is a great guy. Known him for many years. And, he's also a wealth of knowledge regarding all of that Empower stuff. Check out Empower online and the whole skill bridge aspect. Chris is a rock star. Thank you, Chris. We really appreciate you being on here. Have a great one. And remember, if we don't take care of each other, something went wrong.